I am a veteran and I will be talking about my own experience. This helps everyone suffering from PTSD, regardless of the source of their trauma, whether it be military sexual assault, domestic violence, even car accidents. And we do talk about 20 or 22 a day. Something to also remember, in America, 130 Americans commit suicide each and every day. So it's not just the 22. But I also know that I should not be sitting here right now. And my story up until I went through the clinical trial was very normal, sadly. I wasn't some super soldier. I'm not a Navy SEAL. I was an artilleryman who was sent to Iraq with no artillery. And we just did our job. The base I was on, LSA Anaconda, was mortared roughly 6,000 times. I was a designated marksman on Overwatch detail with a Barrett 50 cal during my deployment. In preparation for this, I asked a small group of my friends to provide me with a few names of veterans who have taken their life. Within 24 hours, I had a list of 37 names. And that is all people that are 1 degree removed from me. And again, I should not be here. I came home from Iraq October 26, 2006. And on the morning of December 25th, 2006, I loaded a Beretta 9mm. I put it to my temple and I pulled the trigger. I'm only here because of a manufacturing defect in the ammunition. The second time I tried that, a spring broke. I've tried to overdose and I've slit my wrist twice, and I've been hospitalized. This is a common story. We have lost more people to suicide than we have lost to combat action. And we train our leaders, people like Captain Kaufman and others, to make the hard decisions, to send people up a hill knowing half of them won't come back. We can't train our leaders what happens when those people come back, they come home, and they give their life for their country, not on a battlefield in a distant land, but at home, alone, in the dark. This treatment that I went through provides hope for each and every person who's suffering from PTSD. And as someone who had no drug history, I didn't use drugs in high school. The idea of using MDMA, the active ingredient in ecstasy, scared the hell out of me. But I was also in a point in my life where I was thinking of killing myself every day. Whether it was a good day or a bad day, it didn't matter. And the only thing that kept me alive was my service dog. And that is an untenable situation. And after the last time I slit my wrists, I was hospitalized at the Charleston VA. And they asked me, what can we do to help prevent this? One of the things I asked for was weekly therapy. And they did a great job in making that happen. Due to my psychiatrist having to deal with another veteran in the inpatient ward due to a serious situation, an intern from the Medical University of South Carolina filled in. She slid a piece of paper across the desk, folded in half, and said, don't open that till after you leave the VA, because I'm not allowed to tell you about this. And on that piece of paper was written 3 words: Google MDMA PTSD. And I did. And that's when I found out that MAPS, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, was doing a clinical trial to treat PTSD in the county I lived in. So I called them, and because someone had dropped out of the trial because they were healed after only 1 session, they were able to expand it to include me. So I was the 26th person in a 25-person study. Excuse me. And exactly 8 years from returning from active duty, I took my first dose of MDMA, November 22nd, 2014. And when it kicked in, I spent 8 hours doing therapy. And while you think that, and when I went in, I honestly thought, okay, I'm going to talk about what happened in Iraq. I talked about everything that happened in my life. Not only what happened in Iraq, but also how I came home from Iraq. My wife had left 2 weeks before I came home. No one met the airplane. and I went home to an empty house. I also dealt with the abuse that I suffered as a child. You go in, and this therapy that is only 3 times allows you to process the trauma in a non-traumatic way. You feel safe. And everyone asks me to describe it, and the best description I can give is it's like doing therapy while being hugged by everyone in the world who loves you in a bathtub full of puppies licking your face. But I was able to talk about things that I had never uttered. The words never crossed my lips ever in my entire life, because I felt safe to be able to talk about this. My video cut out?
Yeah, Jonathan, so your video's cut out. So, okay, you're back. Sounds good. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. Was the audio still going through?
It was.
Okay. And so I took my first dose in November, I took my second dose in January, and I took my third dose in March. And the results of the phase 2 trial were, after 12 months, 68% of people no longer had PTSD. I actually still was one of the 32% who still had PTSD. It took a little bit longer, but the trial dropped my CAP score from a 95 to a 50 within 12 months. The phase 3 trials have shown 67% after 2 months of completing the protocol. The consequences, the ramifications of this are huge. I don't know a single person in the military or anywhere else that if they break their leg, they say, oh no, it's fine, I'll just limp around and suffer for the rest of my life. They immediately seek help. They're given exceptionally powerful drugs and may have to undergo surgery. And then they do therapy afterwards. And that is what the MDMA-assisted therapy is like. You go in and you do 12 integration sessions, which are 90-minute non-drug therapy sessions. And you do 3 active 8-hour sessions with MDMA. We can heal PTSD like a broken bone. This is not a chronic, lifelong mental illness that once acquired, this is your new normal, and we can mitigate symptoms. It's a mental injury, just like a physical injury. The problem is a lot of what we've been doing is akin to treating a gunshot victim by just wiping away the blood and never healing that giant gaping hole in it. MDMA helps you to understand and process through changing perspectives what you went through. And even further, for myself personally, because there's somebody out there that's guiding my life, I've actually undergone 4 significant traumas since I went through MDMA therapy. One, I was in a bad car accident that replicated being blown up. I had a gentleman who drowned in the lake behind my house that I went in, pulled out, and tried to save, doing CPR for 20 minutes until relieved by EMS. I had a gentleman shot in the chest half a block away from me in Charleston. Again, I rendered aid and did CPR trying to save him. And most recently, my son had a medical issue on a cruise ship, and I thought he died in my arms. And it was so severe that he was life flighted by the United States Coast Guard to a hospital in Miami. I still don't have PTSD. I also did not have to undergo any sort of relapse protocol or do any other MDMA sessions. Although I will say it was far easier for me to process and deal with those events because I knew that MDMA therapy was available if I needed it, and that there was a relapse protocol. But I have in front of me a list of 37 names of people, 37 families that were destroyed, just like mine almost was. And because of MDMA-assisted therapy, on June 18th, my son will be graduating from high school, and I will be there when he walks across that stage. And I will hug him and I will tell him how much I love him and how proud I am of him. And he has that rather than a folded flag of a father gone by suicide because of the therapy that I went.